Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about 3 different methods to back an embroidery hoop. So without further ado, let's get started. So this is my finished embroidery that I'm going to be demonstrating things on today. As you can see, I've actually double layered this fabric, and the reason why is because when I have designs like this where there's a lot of line work, as you can see, the back is very, very messy. If you're using a thin fabric, sometimes when your hoop is like held up in the right way, you can actually see those backing lines on the front of your hoop, and I don't really care for that. So an easy way to fix this and make it much more opaque is just a double layer your fabric, and that is something I do pretty much every hoop I make in this style, and I do really recommend it. It doesn't really make too much of a difference for backing as long as you are making sure that your fabric is super tight. So first things first, I'm going to take a pair of pinking shears and I'm going to cut the excess fabric off around the hoop. So you want to leave ideally like about maybe like 3/4 of an inch to an inch. You can work with it smaller, but going much smaller than like 1/2 an inch is not the best. And you can use just like a normal fabric scissor, but I recommend pinking shears. They do a really good job of making sure that the edges of your fabric don't fray. So as you can see, when I cut, it's this zigzag type of line, and that prevents fraying too far in. Like, we don't want a ton of fraying, so when you cut with just normal scissors, you can see like you get that nice clean edge to start. But if you look at the edges of the hoop that I'm working on, like at the top there, all that fraying came from those scissors that I just cut with. And it didn't take me that long to make this hoop, maybe like 4 or 5 hours. So I am going to use the pinking shears for this just because I don't want to have any fraying on the backside. Depending on what method I choose to back this hoop, that can make a difference. So here we go. We're just going to snip all the way around, ideally keeping things as even and neat looking as possible, which I'm not exactly the best at, but I'm gonna do my very best. And my pinking shears in this video are not very sharp. You can actually use a little bit of folded over tin foil and snip your scissors through it, and that can help sharpen them up a little bit. I got these at the thrift shop and I did it. It's not a perfect sharpening method, but you know, it'll help extend the life of scissors that are on their way out. So yeah, just another little tidbit for you. And there we go. Not too bad for high level of cutting skills. So now that we have this, I'm going to go ahead and flip the hoop over and show you the first method. This is what I like to call the drawstring method. So we're going to need first to pull a length of thread that's going to make it all the way around that hoop while we're stitching. So I like to give it a little test and then pull out just a little bit extra. I always like to give myself a little bit extra in case you make a mistake in sizing. So next I'm going to thread my needle and we're going to perform something called running stitch around the edge of this fabric. Now to do this, we won't need a knot on the end, so once your needle is threaded, you can immediately start. So I'm inserting my needle from the back side towards whatever surface I'm working on, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap while I'm making my stitches. So as you can see here, you've got like a little bit of floss, you got a little bit of space, floss, space. That space is what's going to allow you to cinch the fabric in together when you make your way all around the hoop. So we are going to continually go all the way around with this running stitch. And you can use whatever color floss you would like for this. It really doesn't matter too much unless you're using a really thin piece of fabric. As you can see, I've got like one thread that's longer than the other. I'm going to pull the shorter thread. So I'm going to anchor my hoop and I'm going to pull that to cinch the fabric around. And at this point, you can tie it in a bow or a knot. I am definitely a tie and knot type of person, even though it can be a little risky, but sometimes I like to live on the edge. snip away the extra. And a lot of people just leave their hoops just like this. This is the first backing method. If you want to have something a little bit like this but neater, you can actually put a piece of felt and just tuck it right in there. And then, this protects your stitches a little bit more. But again, it's really all about like whatever type of aesthetic you want to have. Personally, I do this for most of them just because I like to protect the stitches on the back a little bit. But you can also just take another piece of fabric and layer it, within the hoop if you would like to. So that way you're just backing, once, you don't have to stick anything in the back there. Now, the next method I learned from a wonderful embroidery artist on Instagram named Purpose by Beth. She taught me this way back in the day when I was first starting out, and it's a great method. So for this, you're going to take acid-free matboard and you're going to trace the size of well, obviously not the same hoop, but a different hoop. So I'm using 6 inches. So I got another 6-inch hoop, traced it out, and now I'm going to cut that. And again, my scissor skills are not the best, and I really don't have the best quality of scissors, so I'm going to speed this up for your sake. And yeah, I already know that I'm not good at cutting stuff out. Okay, so we're going to trim this. You do kind of want to trim a little bit within the line because we're going to be fixing this into the back of the hoop. So it needs to be a little bit smaller, but definitely start bigger and then trim off because you don't want to waste a lot of matboard. So now we're just going to kind of squish that in there. And as you can see, the bottom wasn't the right size, so I'm just going to trim a little bit more. Trim that off and try to push that in there, and voila. I really like this method. I think it looks really professional. And it's really nice, like especially if you're starting out, you can sign the back of your hoop then. And if you ever need to clean your hoop, you can just very easily pry this out, take your work out of the hoop, do whatever spot cleaning you may need, or retighten the hoop. Because over time, like your fabric will get a little bit looser. So I really like this method. Honestly, I give it a 10 out of 10. I don't use it all the time, but I really like it. So the last method that I'm going to teach you is the method that I use the most myself personally in my own embroidery career. It's just the first one that I learned how to do really well, so I've always really stuck with it. And I like to just call it backing with felt. To do this, you're just going to need a pretty long length of embroidery floss. I usually double mine up just for a little extra stability while I'm doing blanket stitch. And we're going to tie a knot around the one end and just thread our needle like normally on the other. And to begin, I'm going to make one vertical stitch going from the inside of the hoop towards the outside of the hoop with that length of floss. And then I'm going to put my piece of felt that's been cut to the size of the hoop, so in this case 6 inches, over it, and I'm going to stitch through both the felt and the fabric to create this first stitch, and I always call this my anchor stitch. I'm going to pull that pretty tight and line up the edge of the felt, and now we're ready to do blanket stitch around the entire edge of the hoop. So we're going to now insert our hoop from the outside in, starting with your needle through the fabric of the actual hoop and then going through the felt. Now this is going to create a loop at the top, and you're going to put your needle beneath that loop and pull. And as you can see, it has been affixed. So we're going to continue doing that blanket stitch around the entire outer edge of the hoop to secure the felt to it. And that's really it. This is a great method. I like it for the same reasons that I like the previous method. Like if you ever have an issue where like some horrible accident happens and something gets spilled on your hoop, you need to clean it, gets really dusty, it is possible to just remove the felt, clean it, and put it back. The only caveat is that you have to actually back the hoop again. So if you're not embroidery savvy, I can understand that may not be the best for you, but if you're watching this channel, I assume you probably like embroidery a bit. And honestly, look at that. It's just neat. I just like the way it looks. What can I say? just a fan. I also feel like it really helps keep fabric tension well. I backed this about 8 months ago and it's still keeping really good tension. That's really important to me when I work on hoops. Now, as you can see, I'm already pushing the glue gun away. This is a really popular method. It's the first method that I learned about when I started embroidery, and I hate it. I hate it for a lot of reasons. First off, like, look at the tip of this glue gun. A lot of the glue, it's gonna yellow over time. I don't recommend putting anything like that on your hoop. That's why I recommend using acid-free matboard likewise. So when you are using this method, you're adhering the fabric to the back part of your hoop, like the wooden loop. But again, like, if something happens, you can't take it out. So it's just a permanent method, which I just don't recommend. And same thing with this hoop. This is another method that I see way too often for people that are starting out. As I can see, it is very flimsy, and it's flimsy because I just trimmed the fabric all the way around the back of the hoop. Now, when I did this, this was drum tight. And over the years, as you can see, I've tried to save it a little bit by like pulling those edges, but it will just never be the same unless you go to a smaller hoop. And as you can see with this design, that is just not possible. You need to keep a little bit of extra fabric no matter what. Keeping more fabric than less fabric is always a good rule of thumb because you never know what could happen. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed talking about it. And yeah, good luck backing. I hope you learned something, and we'll see you all next time. For this, I actually like this one the best, so back in you go. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.